Hi there, it's Nicole here today with a card featuring how to create a easy background scene spotlight, and I'm using some great new products from the November release from My Favorite Things. I am creating a background with stencils. We're going to use the mini cloud stencil and then the kind of hill stencil, which can be hills, grass, snow, so many different things. And then I'm going to use this great new frame. It's got a couple of corners and then a couple of 90-degree corners and a couple of rounded corners. Really, really cool. I am die cutting the second largest frame from my smooth white cardstock using that die, and then I'm just going to tape it in place on the back so that I can ink this whole thing seamlessly. To create the spotlight for this card, I want the entire thing to be inked and have the same design, but we're just going to pop up this little panel. So using the Hills die here, I'm going to ink up with Lucky Clover ink a couple of times with two of the different edges along the bottom edge of the card here. So here is the first one, and I'm kind of concentrating the majority of the ink right next to the stencil and then blending out. I want the whole thing to have color, but I want it to just kind of have a nice ombre effect of light to dark. And I like to just spin my stencil around until I get the side that I want to use. I don't always know exactly which one until I lay it out there and see. So here I am inking up the second one. And there is my really nice landscape, and it's going to be grass for this particular card. So I'm going to just finish inking up the bottom area. By using the Post-it tape on the back, it helps hold that little panel in place while still allowing me to know exactly where the spotlight is going to be. Next, I'm taking some Salty Ocean Distress Oxide ink and using the Mini Cloud stencil to create my really pretty sky. And I'm simply going to just keep flipping this around and stenciling all over until my sky is completely filled. I don't have to worry about masking off the grass or anything like that. Distress inks are so forgiving. The Distress Oxides especially are forgiving. If there's a little bit of overlap, you're not really going to see it. In fact, it's going to be pretty light. You can see I didn't ink quite all the way down there to the horizon line. No worries. Now I want to fill in the rest of the panel up near the top. And I just love the cloud stencils. So as My Favorite Things has added more of these awesome stencils to their collection, I am just a huge fan of all of them. They are fantastic for creating a flat scene, which is something I really like. Sometimes you don't always want all the layers, and the stencils are a fantastic alternative. So here is my background. I'm going to quickly clean up my stencils. I'm just spraying a little water from a distress sprayer and then wiping them dry and clean with a dry paper towel, and also my work surface. I have this Easy Clean mat here, and I just like to kind of do all of my inking on it, clean everything up really nice, and my stencils are all clean. My work surface is clean. I can take that same distress sprayer bottle and spritz my background, and it's going to add some nice distressing to that. So I'm just going to blot that dry, and then I can go ahead and remove my Post-it tape here, and I have die cut about 4 more layers using that same frame die, stitched shape die. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to adhere all of those to my card base and then pop up the spotlight image, the image that we just stenciled on top of it, and it creates a spotlight. It makes that the focal point. So first, before I kind of finish up the background, I want to add my greeting, and I'm going to use a greeting from the My Favorite Things New Best Friends stamp set. What I love to do when there's a couple of different fonts in a greeting like this you could do one of two things. You could cut it apart if you wanted to and stamp part of it with the black ink like I'm doing here. I'm using VersaFine ink. And then you could go ahead and use the other part of the greeting and stamp that with your other color. Or you can simply cover up part of it with Post-it tape, ink it up, remove that Post-it tape, and stamp the greeting. I generally try to do this. Sometimes I cut my stamps apart, but for a greeting like this, it was super easy to just mask off part of it, only ink up the words that I wanted to in the color I wanted to, and then go ahead and add that to my card. Now I went ahead and added a little clear embossing powder on top of this. I used the Candied Apple Distress Oxide ink for the 4 legs part of the greeting. And because it's got pigment ink in it, it stays wet a little longer, and I wanted to make sure it was nice and you could definitely read it easily. So I just sealed that with a little bit of clear embossing powder. Next, I have my images here from the new Best Friends stamp set. I love this little stamp set. There's a little girl holding a kitty, and then this other little girl holding a puppy, and then individual puppy and kitty images, and all kinds of fantastic pet-themed sentiments. Really, really cute and fun. I am going to color, I'm a dog person, so I was immediately drawn to the little girl holding the dog. So I am coloring in my images with Copic markers, starting with her skin. Then I'm going to move on to the hair and then some of the hearts. The colors I'm using for each area are shown across the bottom of the screen here. I've listed out what I'm coloring and the number of Copic marker number that I'm using to make it easy for reference. I wanted her to kind of have a reddish brown hair here. And then we're going to move to the hearts. I'm going to only color one of the hearts on camera. The rest I colored exactly the same. I just did those with the camera turned off. So some nice reds with our 24, 46, and 39. One of my very favorite color combinations. For the dog, I am using some earth tone shades. These are some of my favorites, and I'm going to color each puppy in a different color combination. The first color combination is E40, 43, 44, and 47 with a little R20 for the cheeks, and for the tongue, R20 and R24. In fact, I apologize, it's R00 for the cheek with R20 and R24 for the tongue. The nose is going to be the darkest earth tone color, which is, in this instance, is E47. And the little collar around its neck will be in the red shades that I used for the hearts. I'll come back to that in a little bit. I'm going to go ahead and do her pants or leggings here in some shades of gray. Warm gray 3, 6, and 8. And then her boots really reminded me of Uggs, so I am going to color those in some different earth tone shades. Some E50, 55, and 57. The E57 is used pretty sparingly and blended out. And really, the E55 is not used a ton either. I want the majority to stay that E50 with just the other two colors serving to give some dimension and that depth and dimension for the boots. Want them to be that nice kind of light tan suede color. Her sweater, I am going to go with some purple, some red violets, starting with my lightest color, which is RV66. And then I'll move into RV99 for my darkest, with RV69 as the mid-tone color. And I'm going in with my darkest and kind of adding just a tiny bit where I want it to be dark. And then I'm going to blend that darkest color out with my mid-tone, the RV69. To build up to this really nice kind of plum color sweater. It's kind of a very popular color right now. I wanted it to be a nice deep kind of autumny purple. And I'm going to keep working those colors until I get the combination the way I want it to look. I'm going to even go back with my darkest and just kind of add some additional definition in a couple of places before blending out with my mid-tone and lightest markers. For her little boot cuffs, I am going to do little stripes of purple and green. So I'm going to use those same red violets that I used for the sweater, the two lighter tones, and then a couple of green, blue-green tones for the alternating stripe. I love her outfit. I think it's really cute. And here's those reds for the collar. Now for that remaining puppy, I could have gone with the same color combination as before, but I decided to make him more of a little black puppy. So I'm going to work into that black color with some warm gray markers. I'm going to use warm gray 3, 5, 6, and 8 to add or build that black color. And I always like to do a nice base color with my lightest color and then gradually build that up. You don't want to go too dark or you'll miss that detail of the face. So I tend to err on the side of caution as far as working my way up to that darkest color. And I needed to go over him several times to really get that color just the way I wanted it to look. He is also going to have a little red collar using those same red markers. And then I added a little dot detail, one of my favorite things to do to critters and animals. And that is just taking some of my darker shades and adding some little dots when I'm all finished blending and coloring. And I did that for both puppies. I did it for the light brown puppy and the black puppy. Once these are all colored in, I'm going to go ahead and take the coordinating My Best Friend dies and die cut these images. So I've kind of laid everything out to make sure I like how it all looks. And then I'm going to take some adhesive and put it all over a top fold card base. Then I'm going to take the frame area that we stenciled first and put that right in place, and then take one of the die cut frames and pop that down, inlay it into the scene. And what we're going to do is just build these up to really make a spotlight. Now before I add too many of those layers, I wanted to add some little tufts of grass with my G16 marker. So I'm just laying my die cut images out to give me a little bit of an idea of where to add my little tufts of grass. And I really should have put the little black puppy down too, because I ended up having to, I covered up some of my grass and I went back in and added some additional later. It's not a big deal, but it just kind of helps give you a guide before you go ahead and put everything in place. Especially if you want some of that grass to be back behind the images, you want to go ahead and add that before you glue those down. So while it was still relatively flat, and I wanted some to be on the frame or the background and some on the spotlight image, that's why I didn't want to build up this spotlight too much before I added those. Now I'm simply going to glue these one on top of another. Because this is a pretty easy type of image to build up, I'm just using a regular tape runner. It's nothing intricate or detailed. And I really love that it just makes this little spotlight right there at the top of the card. So I'll finish with my stenciled piece with the stamped greeting. And then I'm ready to start adhering my images. And I want the little girl and the puppy to kind of be hanging off the side here. So we'll put her down in place first. And then because of the spotlight image, the puppy is going to be hanging off the side a little bit. And it won't lie flat. To make him pop up a little bit too, I'm going to put some foam adhesive under part of him. And that's going to have him be more on the same layer or level as the rest of that. Otherwise, it would look a little bit funny because part of his face would be raised up and the rest would be trying to stick down to the back of the card base. And it just wouldn't be very successful or wouldn't look very good. So a couple little foam squares here are going to make him perfect. And this is where I realized that I covered up that little grass on the back. So I'm just going to carefully go in and add a little tuft of grass right there behind. And then I've got all of my little hearts here. So I'm going to just add some little dabs of Ranger Multi-Matte Medium throughout my card design and tuck my hearts, or place my hearts right over those little dabs of glue. And I've got a little assortment of 5 hearts here. I often like to do my embellishments in odd numbers. Once I know where I want them to go, I pop them in place. And for me, a little red heart oftentimes just rounds out a design. I think it really fills out this card really nicely and adds that great touch. You can see the love on that little girl's face holding the puppy, and I think that those little hearts just finish it off beautifully. Once I have those in place, I want to take some glossy accents, and I'm going to put a layer of glossy accents on the hearts. This adds a nice glossy finish. When it's all dry, they're going to be glossy raised hearts, but still they're not going to have tons of dimension, but it does still add a little bit. Plus, I love adding a little bit of glossy accents to the noses of the puppies. And then it was a last minute thought. At this point, I thought I might be finished with my card, and I decided to go in and add a little detail to the girl's sweater with a Stardust glitter pin. And it's going to be it's kind of hard, I think, to see in the video, but in person it gives it a nice little sparkly finish, almost like there's a sparkle filament running through the sweater threads. Then I'm going to take the little woof stamp from my new best friend stamp set, ink it up with the Salty Ocean Distressed Oxide ink, and do a little first and second generation stamping all over the background. And my card is all finished. Thanks for joining me today for this card featuring spotlight stamping and My Favorite Things new stamps and dies from the November 2017 release. The supplies I used to create my card are listed and linked below the video here on YouTube. Here are a couple more videos featuring my favorite things that you might be interested in. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you next time.